Coming up this weekend, welterweights looking to get back in the win column. We have, listen, it's the problem, Trevin Giles versus the monster, Louis Cosce. Now, it seems like they've retired those nicknames, but can the problem be a problem for the monster? Can the monster become the problem's problem? We're going to find that out this weekend. And if you look at it for Trevin Giles, I mean, crazy transformation for his last fight, because this is a guy that's fought at light heavyweight in the UFC, got a win there over James Boknovic. Fought pretty well his entire career at middleweight. Former, LFA middleweight champ, RFA, or at least he fought the best of the best with the organizations that were. And if you look at it for Giles, I mean, just a laundry list of contenders he's fought. He has a win over Ryan Spann. He's fought Brendan Allen. He's fought really good competition in the UFC. And you consider it, you look at the last two fights where he's been finished, and I mean, yeah, listen, will it happen against Dricus du Plessis? I guess. Is Dricus going to fight Darren Till? That's kind of up in the air. Will it happen against Michael Morales?
It will.
I guess, and it did. So it was weird to see for Giles having fought 17 fights to then go down to welterweight. He's kind of taken a little bit of a hiatus from being a police officer from all accounts. And this is the last fight on his deal, coming off two pretty bad knockout losses, really. Fighting Louis Cosce, a power puncher who punched his power in the first round against Sasha Palatnikov, and tried to wrestle in the second and third rounds, didn't have the gas left, and then since, and I listened to an interview that he did with James Lynch, and I want to make sure there's a lot of James Lynch interviews this week, with all different organizations. So this one was with, MMA News. He did the interview there. He said he had both shoulders cleaned up. That's the reason for the layoff.
Like Paul George.
It's been about 2 years away. He's really taken advantage of the PI, training with a lot of great people in Vegas, getting ready for this fight. But for Cosce, the question marks were always he had never fought a good level of competition. He beat off Danny McWilliams, who his brother had already beat off, and both the Shabazian brothers had beaten off Danny McWilliams. So big wins over McWilliams. But for Cosce, can he power punch against Trevin Giles, or can Trevin Giles just win or rest on his laurels and get a win here against Cosce? It's not as cut and dry as that, but Giles is struggling against some of these power shots.
It's wild that Giles has twice as much professional experience, though, because Giles himself doesn't even have that much professional experience. Like, 18 fights is good, but like, there's people who have 18 fights in the UFC, not just in their professional careers, so it is kind of extreme, I should say, to see Giles have this much of an edge with his experience. But, and I'm really this one-sided in a pick, I think Trevin Giles is the much more skilled guy in this matchup. I worry about the weight cut, and like you had said, Louis Cosce does have incredible power when he's able to land those power shots. But the thing about Giles is he has good footwork, and I know how sometimes it gets him into trouble. Even think back to the Dricus du Plessis fight. Dricus is the weirdest, drunken Shaolin fighter you've ever seen. He just does everything wrong, and then his power somehow wins out. But that's exactly what happened in that fight. Trevin Giles is backing him up. He's looking really good with some of his single shots, and then he walks into a really big power shot from du Plessis. And like you had just said, du Plessis is being talked about having a fight with a guy like Darren Till, or at least other people in and around the rankings. So that tells you how good a guy like Dricus is. I don't think Louis Cosce is on that level. I think, yes, the thing that they have in common is that their power is an outlier for both of them. Yes, it is. But I don't think Cosce has the same ways to land the power as Dricus did, and that's why I like Trevin in this fight.
When you look at it for both these guys, for Trevin Giles, even in his last fight against Morales, you watch the first minute and a half of that fight and tell me who's winning the fight. It's Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles is going out there, throwing that big power jab of his, really leaning into it, but throwing a really zippy right hand. And if you do look at it, he drops Morales with the right hand. It sends Morales back to the cage. He goes wobble-legged. He kind of picks himself back up. They might not consider it a knockdown, but he did send him flying. And then right after he does it, Giles clenches up, and I thought, what the hell is he doing here? This is terrible. If you know anything about Michael Morales, his judo's great, his wrestling's great. It's the way that he wins out in a lot of his fights, and his striking happens to be very good too. I think he's going to have a great future in the UFC, but Giles grapples, and then Giles gets the takedown. It's like, holy smokes, this is really impressive. They get back up, they start to strike again. It's a right straight and then an uppercut from Morales that drops Giles, and that's pretty much all she wrote. So if you do consider it for Giles, again, very good level of competition, adept in the wrestling, offensively and defensively. He does like to bounce on his feet with his hands fairly low, kind of like an Andrew Sanchez would in the past, but Sanchez had success with it, and Sanchez got caught by it. And for Trevin Giles, he's had success with it, and he's also gotten caught by it. So we'll see what happens in the matchup, because for Cosce, he can wrestle offensively. It was always that threat of, well, how good's the level of competition? The craziest part is, He loses to Sasha Palatnikov and then misses the entire Palatnikov experience. That was UFC, XMMA, everywhere. They now train together at Syndicate, so that's pretty wild. He also trained quite a bit with Daniel Rodriguez for Rodriguez's fight against Li Jingliang, but also for his fight.
That's the thing about Cosce, though. We question his level of competition coming into the UFC. They lost to Sasha Palatnikov. Sasha Palatnikov's not like Li Jingliang. He's not Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's not like...
Cosce was a minus 600 favorite against Palatnikov.
I remember thinking Cosce was going to look amazing, and he did until he didn't. Gosh darn it. Because that's the thing. Once his cardio does start to fall off, the looping shots become much more easy to see coming. And if Giles can utilize some of that footwork, use some of his rangefinders to then lead up his power shots, I think Giles can have a lot of success in this matchup. Again, it's rare that I'm confident in a fighter coming off 2 stoppage losses, fighting in a weight class that I'm not even really sure he belongs in to begin with. I just think that when you break down these guys' skill for skill, well, the mountain that Trevin Giles' skill set sits on is a lot higher than the mountain that Louis Cosce's skill set sits on.
But they're both mountains. It's not like a mountain and an anthill, right?
I'd say a mountain and like a snow pile.
Oh, well, Matt, when we have a look at the odds in this matchup, Trevin Giles open to minus 200, minus 210.
There's a lot here, Craig. Could be a big pile.
It snows in September? I don't think so. Louis Cosce open to plus 170. Plus 180 as it stands. We have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt, and I don't expect that they're all that close. I'm going to say over under 85% Giles.
I think they'll be under, but it'll still be on his side.
It's slightly under, 834 total votes. 81% Giles, 26% by decision, 68% by knockout. For the 19% that have Cosce, 29% by decision, 55% by knockout. I would think more people would have Cosce to win by knockout. Considering some of these shots that have knocked out Trevin Giles, it is very worrisome. I mean, that fight against Morales, he gets sent down, the referee holding him, and Giles kind of protests a little bit, but he was definitely knocked out, and knocked out hard. He took a lot of shots when he was kind of covering up and getting hit by Morales. I do think Giles has the skill set to beat Cosce. I do obviously love the fact that he's fought a lot of very high-level fighters. I thought for Giles, maybe somewhere in the periphery in the range of like 25 to 20, maybe just bridging a little bit further at middleweight. But I'm surprised he's here at welterweight. Maybe Cosce's the guy to catch him, but I do have Giles in this one.
I still don't have a lot of confidence in Cosce moving forward, if I'm being completely honest. Like, his game is sort of one note. It's very power-oriented, and once that power does start to fade, there's not really a plan B or a plan C, and that's where I do think Trevin Giles can have success. I think he can use his jab, can use his footwork. He does have good cardio to go along with his output, too, so I think that if Cosce does start to slow down at any point throughout this fight, that's when Giles can start to uptick his own work rate, maybe even look for a finish.
Both of us going with Trevin Giles to get the win. Let us know if you have Cosce here with the power shots, and you're worried about the chin of Trevin Giles in the matchup. Some big time fights on this card. Pat Sabatini, Damon Jackson next. You're not going to want to miss. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.